Well, I like going hunting, just me, my hound, and my gun. Chasing them deer, rabbit, and squirrel, now that's my kind of fun. I like going fishing too, I'll go on any whim, looking for the big bass, the crappie, and the brim. Just give me a wide open field to walk through. Give me an ocean so deep. I want to ride the longest river in the world, or maybe climb the highest mountain peak. Like going down to the fishing hole, my buddies and me and my old cane pole. Bait them hooks and wet them lines, it's the life I love so fine. It's almost supper time, you'd think the world was mine.
And now for today's outdoor adventure, here's Archie Phillips.
Well, folks, we've got some real interesting guests with us here today, and we're going to talk about some things that everybody talks about, such as an assault weapon. What is an assault weapon? We're going to take you back and show you what assault weapon was in the Stone Age, what assault weapon is in the middle era of the guns, and what truly is assault weapon is just some liberal media hype that it's a semi-automatic weapon that's been available for 75 or 80 years, and they just like those ugly words like assault this and assault that. We're going to explain it to you like it really is. We've got Mr. Warren Cassidy from the NRA right here, and we got Mr. Rogers here as the Chief Deputy of Jefferson County. J.O. Duke here has got an excellent gun collection that he was kind enough to bring out here. It took a lot of work and time to get it here, and we're going to show you the evolution of the gun up to the modern day, most modern of pistols and rifles. Well, years ago, early man, he had to have some way to defend himself. He also had to have a system of taking game and food and all, and these are some of the weapons that he used here. These are different arrowheads, spearheads, and atlatl points. And I guess one of the most deadly things he had as time went on was he developed up into the spear. And Warren Cassidy here was Executive Secretary of the NRA. I got that right, didn't I, Warren?
Wrong title, but I'm in the right place,
Okay, okay. They developed spearheads that they put on the end of a spear, and they would throw them maybe 30 yards, but most especially they would get as close as they could and try to do the critter in or the person that they was being attacked by. But then, one day, an old Indian in his, I guess in his workshop, he got to putting things together, and this thing could have evolved over several thousand years, but it goes back 10,000 years, even back to the Mayan times. And he figured out if this arm, if you could throw it this fast with one arm, if your arm was twice as long, you ought to be able to throw it twice as far. So he developed what's called an atlatl. There's a hook right on the end here and a counterweight. Now, nobody I know of knows what this counterweight was for, other than to give you forward progress with a spear. He'd put his thumbs in this atlatl like this. This knock would go right in the end of this thing, and he would hold it just like this. And on the end, you're talking about repeating rifles, Warren, watch this. This little old spear right here was a dart, and it comes out. He'd have 6 or 8 of these, and maybe just one of these. So as soon as this would hit a critter or a person, they'd run, this would stay in them, and this would fall down. He'd run up with his repeater, take another, stick it in there, he'd back in business. But the physics of this thing is awesome. Man could throw it about 30 yards. They did a test with a 30-06 shooting into a clay bank. Another man was proficient with the atlatl. They measured the shot of both the atlatl and the 30-06. Atlatl penetrated deeper than the 30-06. 400 times more powerful than throwing it by hand. Now, what did that do? That gave the birds that had this the advantage. That was the assault weapon of the Stone Age. In fact, they even have contests now, Warren, where they're using it. And it's good stuff for kids in school to learn a little bit about physics. What happens when you do these sort of things? And I'm sure the folks got bent out of shape about that, but they used this until about, I think about 400 or 500 AD, and then it came with a bow, which wasn't any better, but it was more accurate.
You know, Arch, if I could add something here, anthropologists, you know, those fellows that dig up around the world in Africa and try to find these early civilizations, they find that in the growth of mankind, the thing that separated the first men from the animals were weapons. When that first fella came down out of the tree and picked up a rock. He didn't pick that rock up to write a poem, or he didn't pick that rock up to build a church even. He picked that rock up to help him get game. And the very first tool of civilized man was a weapon.
Was a weapon.
And these certainly were one of the early ones.
And you know, some of these folks that always wanting to disarm us, Warren, I don't know what in the world they use for brains, because if we wasn't afraid for our safety in this nation, they wouldn't have them atom bombs sitting up in them silos ready to shoot at somebody if they messed with us. Only difference in that and what we do with our handguns and our rifles, no, we do it on a personal basis. They do it on a collective basis.
Well, you know, earlier when you were talking with Paul Ott about the Eastern European countries and how they finally got a lot of their freedoms back, you notice when the Gorbachev decided to put the pressure on Lithuania, what was the first thing he did? He didn't close their churches or the temples. He didn't stop their right to print newspapers. He didn't stop their right to assemble. He didn't go into their homes. What did he do? Turn in your guns. The very first thing that the dictator always does.
Turn in your guns, because we know what's best for you, and we're not going to mistreat you once we get those guns in.
Absolutely.
Ha ha. Folks, this is a resolution of the House of Representatives in Alabama. It's called HJR 79, Act number 61, by Mr. Jack Biddle here from Gardendale, Alabama. This is the Alabama's Right to Keep and Bear Arms resolution passed by the House and Senate. Jack, we want to thank you, buddy.
You're welcome,
We appreciate your efforts. Now,
yes, sir.
And for NRA, Jack, thank you very much, too.
Just happy to do it.
Now, Warren, he done us another favor. Tell us about that other bill you got through there.
I passed a bill, the last bill that I passed pertaining to firearms says that no municipality in the state of Alabama can enact any laws pertaining to the ownership, possession, or purchase of a handgun.
Preemption.
Right. So it keeps the purchase of handguns and the carrying of handguns in the hands of the legislature, who are elected by all of the people in the state, which I just feel a little better with.
Well, Jack, on behalf of our almost 3 million members nationwide, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It's a great example. I hope the other 49 states will follow.
I hope so, too.
Now, Warren, I want to tell you something else about Jack. He ain't going to brag too much, but he's going to have to help me. He has won, I don't know how many, trap and skeet shooting. Give us some of the titles that you've done, Jack.
I've won the Alabama State Trap Shooting Championship 10 times.
10 times?
10 times, right.
How many of them, the most of them birds that flew out there before you ever missed one? What's your longest consecutive streak?
400.
400 without missing one.
Yeah. I can't do it now, though.
Well, you know, age does a lot of things to a lot of people. It's just like the other day we was chasing rabbits. You know, I got 2 younger boys, and I found out how old I was. And you know how I did, Warren? The rabbit hopped across this little old creek. And my 20-year-old, he hopped across that little old creek. And my 32-year-old, he hopped across that little old creek. And I come running, I got right up to
Archie
the bank, and I
creek.
said, no, I better not. So I walked around. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Jack, with that kind of trap shooting record, you must have gone to Vandalia.
No,
You haven't?
Back in those days, I couldn't afford to go.
Oh, now you can't afford
Now I
it, so you
can't go and I
should.
can't hit them anymore.
Now, Jack, I wish you'd just turn around now
All right.
and tell the folks, you know, I got a favorite gun, and I don't want to prejudice anybody's thoughts and all, but I had a fella that used to shoot deers and deers and deers, and he said, Archie, when are you going to get you a real gun? Well, I didn't know what he was talking about, but I got me a Model 12 Winchester. Money won't buy it. You understand what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, Archie. This is the gun that I won the state championship with 10 times. I'm no reflection on you. It was a little bit nicer than this one.
Well,
but,
I understand all of them's a little nicer than this one, but I use mine, Jack. You don't want no showcase.
I use mine too, but I shot it at singles, doubles, handicap. One thing that just tore me up was to get up there to shoot doubles and misfire on one barrel. You know,
Oh, boy.
and oh boy, it just messes you up. So all I had to worry about was my left arm. Could I shuck it? And as long as I can shuck it, I wasn't worried about it.
Well, that's the way I go on hunting trips, and guys go out there with me, and I know there's a lot of good automatics on there, but we get halfway in the woods and a squirrel run across a limb, and I'm just, you know, I try to give them an opportunity to go ahead and take a shot, and I hear click, click, oh, need some WD-40.
Yeah.
No, what you need is a Model 12.
No Model 12. they don't come any better. I wouldn't take anything from mine.
Do you know now that Browning is making these guns, the 1912 model, exact, except you can't hold the trigger and keep firing, breaking them brand spanking new.
I have not seen one, but I think that it's a needed gun to be made today.
I think so. All right, turn around here and let's fire a few off,
All right.
then we'll move on up the line here, Jack. Now, you're telling me that these little old low brass or shoot better than these high brass. And Jack, I find that hard to believe. I trust you and all that, but I just, it's like I say, how much more powder I got in here.
Yeah, all you're doing is pushing out a lot more shots that's going to kick you a lot more.
You think so?
I know so.
All right,
what you going to shoot?
I'm going to shoot that middle guy right there.
You going to shoot him?
Get it lined up here. Well, folks, in firearm history, got Mr. Tom Starnes with us, and this is one of the earliest guns we could find. And Tom, tell us a little bit about this gun right here.
Well, this gun here was brought over from England in about the 1640s, and it was very popular, and it's called a fusil de chasse. The French liked it a lot, and the French traders would get it, but it was actually made in London, England. Now the rifle, this gun is not a rifle, it's a smoothbore. It shoots shot, and it also shoots a ball.
So it's a
very versatile weapon,
yeah,
very versatile weapon. And the thing that's real odd about it, I was reading a book about the history of the gun, and the gun, like I say, was introduced in 1640, was invented basically in 1640, not many changes. And when the Northwest Company up in Hudson Bay was looking in their inventory to see what hadn't sold in the last few years, and this was in 1939, they said, well, we hadn't sold many of these, we'll take it off our inventory.
And you bought the gun?
And then I bought this gun, and this isn't the very gun that they had. They took off the inventory, but this is one that was like it, just exactly like it, a replica of it.
All right, show them how this mechanism works. Everybody wonder about a cap. I mean, this is actually a piece of flint right here.
Piece of flint rock.
Got some leather holding it in,
to hold it in there, and clamps down in there and holds it in place.
Okay.
Then you've got this fusil. Then you've got this pan like here, which holds your, lets your spark go down into the pan. And I don't know if you can see real well, but there's a little pan down in there.
Right.
And in there, you would put your powder. And then you would close it up, and then the powder wouldn't go anywhere. It wouldn't drop anywhere.
Oh, you could keep it loaded.
And you could keep it loaded. And actually, if it's built real good and real close, you wouldn't even get any water or moisture into it.
Hey, that's neat. That's the kind I'd need.
That's right.
All right, load that thing over. Now, one other thing, Tom. Who all do you work with in your shooting? I know y'all got organizations.
Okay, we have an organization that's been around since way back. It's called the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association. We're affiliated with the NRA. They ask us to all be members of the NRA, and we are. I'm a life member of the NRA since 1966.
I am too, since a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the NRA kind of uses us to expertise on the muzzleloading end of it.
I see.
They come to us, we go to them with the other things, and they come to us and ask us what's a good thing, what's safe. We publish articles about safety on loading them and so forth.
Got to be safe.
Right.
Well, show us how this works. Now, I know about this flash and all. I'm going to step aside when you fire this now. I know you know what you're doing, but I always get a little nervous when these flintlocks go off. So show us the details of loading and firing.
Okay, first thing, you have a powder horn, and you've got black powder in there. You would take your powder horn, you would open it up.
That's a little deer horn hollowed out.
And a little deer horn hollowed out, which is pre-measured. I already know how much powder it's going to hold.
Fill it slap up.
And I fill it up, and then I charge my rifle or my gun with it, pour it down the barrel, and I stomp it just a little bit to make sure it gets down in there. Then I would set a ball and a patch, lead ball, 100% lead. I'd ram it down the barrel, making sure it's seated firmly on the powder.
Okay.
That's very important. You don't want to leave a gap in there because it could cause a little extra jolt there. Then you would come back, you would open your fusil, you would take your little powder horn like so, and you would charge that pan with powder.
That horn is just for this job.
That's
right?
just for this. That's a small little deal, and every time I push it down, it gives me 10 grains of powder.
10 grains.
This was very, very much used in the old days. If you had to, you could take your main powder horn and use it.
Stick it in there.
And stick it in there and do it. Okay. But it's much better to use this smaller one.
All right.
Then you would close her down.
Okay.
It's cocked now, and it's ready to shoot.
All right, let me see you blast off one.
Okay. We'll hit that lady with the shooting at me.
Very good. Chief Rogers, now you're in charge of all this conjugating. How many of these AK-47s and assault, quote, media type guns have you took off these crooks and dope heads around town here?
Archie, we haven't confiscated any of this type of weapon at all.
In other words, the news media have you believe that every crook run up downtown had an AK-47.
That seems to be the trend of the media across the nation, making the attack on the so-called assault weapon. But this has not been any problem to our department at all, and we live in a metropolitan area of some 750,000 inhabitants.
Yeah. Well, you know, they say we won't pass all these laws on guns. We got laws against dope, hadn't we?
Sure have.
Hadn't stopped none of it, though, had it?
No.
Well, tell us, if you would, if they're not confiscating this kind of weapon, what are you taking off of criminals, Chief?
Here's an array of an assorted type of firearms that really pose the problem for us. All of these are single shot. There have been more people killed with single shot weapons than all the automatics combined, that is, in civilian police work.
Look at that old ugly thing right there. I'd almost be afraid to be on the back end of some of this junk y'all gathered up.
That's
You
right.
know that?
These are the type weapons that
Look at this thing.
that the outlaws are going to make. You can pass laws from now on, and it's not going to have any impact on the people that are determined to use these type weapons illegally. It just won't make any difference to them. There are already laws on the books to prohibit this, and they don't abide by it.
Don't pay no attention. Now, Willie over here, he's got us a special thing, I believe, hadn't you? Show us what you took off one of them crooks, Willie.
Okay. If they take away your legal guns, this is the type of weapon that you're going to find on the criminal out here. These are handmade in a machine shop. This weapon will fire. It fires a .32 caliber cartridge, and all this is made in a machine shop. Cartridge is here, .32 caliber. Short barrel, but it's made for close range shooting. It's made to kill. Firing mechanism is just a plunger spring type deal, and it's made to shoot and kill at close range.
How about
And it's
that?
easily confiscated in the pocket.
Isn't that something? So the crook's going to get the guns, and you know what just really, really tears me up is you disarm people in these major cities, and then they've got no means of protection. The police is out there on the streets trying to stop the looters, and then the murderers in there killing people and shooting babies and stuff up there in some of them big cities. And then if a man has a gun, they put him in jail for protecting his home. That's stupid, ain't it?
Yeah, they've got their priorities in the wrong direction. To disarm the legal law-abiding citizen should be a crime within itself.
Well, it ought to be treason or hanging offense is what it ought to be, in my opinion. Just string them up, because ain't nobody that I know of, if every friend I had and every acquaintance I know good had an AK-47, I would have absolutely no fear of my life.
That's right, there'd be no threat.
No, because, you know, they got automatic shotgun nearly everybody I hunt with, and they're by far more potent than one of these AK-47s.
What happens on gun control legislation is that you wind up disarming the legal law-abiding citizen because he's going to obey that law. But the criminal violator, it's going to make no difference to him. He's going to continue right on to have his weapon and use it against the defenseless citizen. Now,
And that's a rotten shame.
Yeah,
But it don't have to happen. We don't have to reel back on this. We take the offense and maintain number 2, the right to keep and bear arms.
Well, these weapons at one time were legal weapons.
Then they whacked them off,
The
didn't they?
criminals what turned this into an illegal weapon.
Yeah,
Turned this shotgun into an illegal weapon.
I see.
So these were legal weapons at one time. The criminal element can make an illegal weapon if they so desire.
And these have been used in various crimes.
Now, folks, next time you pick up a newspaper, turn your television on, and they keep talking about guns doing all this bad stuff. You go in that voting booth, if there's a judge out there that's turning these crooks loose, vote him out. If there's a representative in there that's voting against your right to keep and bear arms, throw him out. Let your folks know that the right for self-preservation in your own home as a law-abiding citizen will not be infringed in this country. Now, nobody's got a better system than we have. All of Europe collapsed over there, and them people was shot and thrown in big old holes and covered up, but they were all disarmed. You look at every nation on the face of the earth, the first thing the criminal government does is take up the guns. We don't want that to happen in this country. We've got strong people that believe as we do. We've got the Sheriff's Department and our sheriffs and all work with us on the right to keep and bear arms. And Warren Cassidy, without the NRA up there, you can kiss your right to hunt goodbye in this country. And then the criminal, he's the dude that's got the big stick in this country. Now, we want to thank y'all for the job you're doing up there.
Thank you, Archie.
And Chief, we appreciate your strong stance on these criminals, because I tell you what, it's a sad state of affairs when law-abiding citizens have to continually be victims because they take away your right to guns, and as you showed us, the criminal's going to get a gun. He's not going to go up there and sign up for no waiting period, and he's not going to go up there and tell them who all he is. He's just going to break in a house one night, get a gun from one of us, and go out and do his mischief. And Chief, we appreciate your facilities here, and Warren, you can tell them boys back up Washington, just keep hammering away there now, because we got to have each
Very
other.
well.
You know what I'm saying? And Duke, many thanks to you for the hours you put in bringing these guns out chronologically and showing the history of them and how they do, and all the other folks that support people, and Dave Hollick and his group, and the sheriffs and the boys on the rappelling teams and all. We just appreciate all of you, and y'all folks stay tuned again next week for some more Outdoors with Archie Phillips.